Ah, tasty.
Finally! Good work, Kronk.
Oh, they're so easy to make. I'll get you the recipe.
Now, to get rid of the body.
Hello and welcome to Cooking with Callum. Today I'm going to be showing you how to make Kronk's spinach puffs from The Emperor's New Groove. So first you're going to need spinach, and it's your option, but first you're going to take off the stems first and separate them into a different pile. And be sure to be thorough with this if you want a good appearance for your spinach puffs, but then again, just visual, nothing else. Now, you're going to need spinach, dill, and shallots. And then you're going to want to separate the spinach from everything else and chop it pretty generally. You don't want to make it too thin if you can, but then again, it doesn't really matter. Just do it and everything will work out. Then you're going to get the dill, cut it firmly, make sure not to get any of the stems in there. It could result in a bad taste. Don't want that. Put it over to the side. Then you're going to get your shallot, just one. And then you're going to want to mince it finely, very finely, or else there's going to be giant chunks of shallot in your spinach puffs, and you do not want that, trust me. You're going to want to crush 2 cloves of garlic, just separate them evenly, put them into a container on the side just for neatness, and then I'm going to pass it to my assistant, who is then going to saute the shallots for about 30 to 40 seconds. Be sure to not overcook it because it can burn very easily. Then once cooked, add the garlic and only quickly mixing them in until they've got to know each other. Then we're going to add the spinach finally, which is a much larger amount, but don't worry, it will simmer down to a more reasonable size. While this is being done, you're going to want to get a bowl. You're going to want to fill it with some cream cheese for the main cheese. Not too much though, or it might result poorly. Some Parmesan and half a cup of feta. And while the mixture is still hot, pour it in. It is very important that it's still hot or it will not mix properly. As you can see right here, we didn't have enough, so we went on and made a bit more to properly mix it. So you're going to want to make sure that you have a good amount of, a good ratio of cheese to spinach, and it's going to want to look like this. And now you're going to want to clean up the mess that you've made, because it is quite a bit, which my assistant will do. And then we're going to want to lay out our all-purpose flour onto a cutting board, which, again, very messy. Be very careful with your kitchen. It can turn out bad. To which we are then going to bring out some puff pastry, flat, which we could have made, but we didn't, and a rolling pin, to which you're going to want to roll the puff pastry out to a solid length, whatever you want. Just make sure it's not too thick, too thin. It's something that you can feel for yourself. To which we're going to want to cut into 3 to 4 inch squares, which I have done very poorly, very uneven. So try to learn from my mistakes. Next, you're going to get these lines of puff pastry and load them onto a tray with a lining of parchment paper. Be sure not to drop it like I did here. If you don't cut it properly, it will link together and do that, which you don't want. It's infuriating. I want to throw it away, but I can't. Now that you've lined your parchment paper with puff pastry squares, you're going to want to get your spinach mixture and dollop a little bit into the center. This is entirely dependent on how large you cut your pastries, but just a good spoonful should do. Make sure not to go overboard though, or your puff pastries will explode in the oven. Now you're going to want to get beaten egg and just line the corners and edges of your puff pastry with the egg to keep it stuck together once you pinch it. After mentally preparing yourself for what is to come, you should pinch the corners of each of them. Be sure to make it very tight. We're going to be making it in a cornucopia shape, like Kronk does in the movie, but you can feel free to do it however you want. But I can attest to how nice these look once out of the oven, so I would suggest the cornucopia. But once again, it is just your preference. You're going to want to put this in the fridge for 10 minutes, to which you are going to bathe your spinach puffs to be in egg bath, if you will, that you used from earlier to line the puff pastry. Just with a brush, it's not effective to pour it on. Trust me, it's not good. Put it in the oven for 20 minutes. Don't be hasty. Take it out, and you'll find that you have some beautiful spinach puffs that Kronk would be very proud of.